In most cases, your first thought of or feeling on a situation is the right one. Second guessing yourself, usually, from experience, leads to impending disaster. And so it was one lunchtime at the end of autumn '94. I was just getting into the Mini to head home for some food when Aaron, known as Plumhead, from down the village where my yard was, appeared on a push bike. We had known each other since childhood, but the guy was just a bloody pest. No matter how one tried to shake him off, he just couldn't be got rid of. It wasn't just up at Grand's either. He would show up down on the estate quite often too, having pinched someone's push bike and cycled the 4 miles into town. One summer weekend, I'd been fiddling around trying to get a late 60s Honda moped going on our drive. There was something missing out of the carburettor, so it was never likely to run like that. My pal, Danny, who lived a few miles out past port in a rural cottage with his parents and siblings, reckoned he had one at home and dropped it into us the next day. My parents had some friends round, having been out for Sunday lunch at a local pub. Said friends consisted of Grunting George, named by myself because he would turn up, sit at our kitchen table reading our paper, and should anyone address him whilst doing so, just go, huh, without looking up. His wife, a pleasant lady who could talk you down in an instant, and their son, a spoiled lad whom everyone knew as Fat Boy, even though by teenage years he had lost his childhood puppy fat, which had been a result of much overindulgence by his grannies. The little Honda, now with its fuel issue fixed, burst into life second kick, ticking over happily on the drive. Myself, Danny, and Fat Boy were trying to get up and down our back garden when Aaron arrived uninvited. After 10 minutes of his bullshit, I went inside to get a drink, emerging to see his big head, helmetless, shoot past me on my moped and off up the estate. Knowing what our neighbours were like, I shouted at him to get off the bloody thing and push it back. No dice. Dad and Grunting George came out of the house to see what had sparked all the noise. I explained. Certain as February flew, 20 minutes later, a police car with its blue lights came racing down the estate. Aaron bombed onto our drive, throwing the moped on the floor and running off up our back alley. Everyone else, bar George, who had disappeared, stood on the drive as the coppers exited the diesel Vauxhall Astra they had arrived in. My father explained we had been tinkering with the ancient relic all weekend and that one of our group had become a little over enthusiastic. Grudgingly, the coppers departed, driving to the bottom of our cul-de-sac to turn round. At seeing them leave, Aaron came running out of the garden shed, obviously where he'd been hiding, shouting, "Ha ha, I got away with it!" just as the coppers were driving past with their windows open. They paused, but clearly just couldn't be arsed with this idiot. Dad looked fit to spifflicate Aaron, but instead asked me where Grunting George was. I told him to go and look in the garden shed. Sure enough, there he was, hiding from the law too, though Lord knows why. This was not the only incident with Aaron. He had turned up bragging about buying an MOT failed Lancia Delta that day in '94. This apparently from one of our ex-school teachers. A project to do up was how he described it, though with no job, a love of smoke bordering on an obsession, and nowhere but his mother's front garden to carry out such work, Nick and I dismissed it as a load of bollocks. His arrival that lunchtime on a push bike signalled that his Austin minivan, which incidentally I had found him from another scrappy, had succumbed to his rampant revving and roaring driving style. Aaron then spent 20 minutes pleading with me to take him down into town where another Lancia Delta was located on a housing estate someone had given him for free if he would just take it away. In his head, the plan was to make one good car out of the two heaps. When we got there, of course the Lancia to be collected had a flat battery. I jump-started it off my mini estate and followed Aaron back through town before heading home for lunch. When I got to the yard later on, I could hear a car being dogged to hell all round the common. Sure enough, it was Aaron, in the black Lancia. Eventually the car ran out of fuel down by one of our fields. He came into the yard asking if he could push it inside the field gate. I had customers, so just nodded. His mother wouldn't allow him another car to be kept at their house, so if I let him keep it down by the hay shed for a couple of weeks, he would strip the parts needed for the project car, then I could weigh the black one in for scrap once he had finished. Fair enough? Normally you'd say yes, but this was Aaron. Nothing happened in the form of doing anything like he had originally said. I blew my top telling him to get started stripping the bloody thing or I would tow it down and dump the rotten heap outside his mother's gate. This threat sparked a bit of half-hearted action, mainly in the form of him taking the doors and tailgate off, plus the wheels, which meant I couldn't tow the thing anywhere easily. Weeks went by with him doing little. I threatened him again, but this time saying I would just weigh the car in for scrap. Aaron just wanted a few more small parts needed for the other car. After another month, I just asked him outright what exactly it was he needed before the car could go for scrap, and he told me. I then went down there and removed the items, dropped them off at his mother's before dragging the remains out of their field onto the old Bedford TK and away to be crushed. Oh, what a mistake. I came back with the 22 quid earned thinking no more about it. But in the evening, I got home to mother saying Aaron's parents had been on the phone and why had I stolen his car. I rang them back and explained, but no, they were adamant. When I got the scrapyard with another load the next day, John, the yard's owner, took me aside. He admonished me for causing him problems by bringing in cars that were not mine to scrap. When I got back, a bloke from the council was there in our yard. He said a complaint about someone running the scrapyard from the premises and noise from cars being dogged all over the common had been made by a neighbour. For the following 18 months, I had Aaron driving by, shouting threats, demanding the true value of the car that was owed to him. All the folks that he was hanging around with started hassling me too, and I just fronted it out. My elderly grandmother started having someone rattling the bungalow's doors and windows late at nights, setting off the alarms and frightening her to death. Dad or I having to turn out and come up and reassure the poor old soul. One summer evening, the police arrived to search through all my motorcycle spares for stolen goods after an anonymous tip-off. During the search, I was placed in handcuffs outside by the patrol car, Aaron riding up and down on his push bike laughing and pointing. The police found nothing, of course, because there was nothing to find, then went over talking to Aaron. Various other bullshit continued until things came to a head one evening late on in the summer. I was parked with an old mate chatting while sat in my battered old BMW E21. This had now replaced the Mini. Aaron pulled up alongside with a crew in his car, shouting various threats and demanding money. My temper flared up. I jumped out of the car and telling him what I thought about the whole bloody job, before climbing back into the driver's seat. As I turned the ignition on, a fist came through the open window, hitting me square on the nose. Blood spattering all over my mate's best shirt. With four of them now out of the car, I fired the six-cylinder up and left. They followed us home, sitting outside on the drive, shouting abuse. Mum helped stop the bleeding from my face, then called the police to move the idiots on and make a formal complaint of assault. The case took 4 months to get to court, and all the while Aaron trying anything to intimidate us to drop the prosecution. We went to court and he was bound over to keep the peace. It even made the local paper. But one local old woman even harassed me in the pub after reading the article, saying why had I upset that lovely lad Aaron and caused his lovely parents so much distress, taking them to court. This wasn't the end of it. Someone stole my old racing push bike out of our shed, dumped it in my cousin's yard, and then smashed all the windows on his lorries, making it look like I had done it. Him then ringing me, asking me if I wanted my push bike back in a somewhat knowing and cheesed off voice. I didn't smash his lorries up, of course, but I would bet the rent on knowing who did. Hello there. Thank you for watching my video. I know it's been a bit of a longer one today. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, then please subscribe and also share with any friends that might like it too. Really is appreciated. Take care.